That's the script.
Is everyone ready?
You guys ready?
Ready? Okay, perfect. All right, good afternoon. My name is Alex Farkas and I'm the Public Information Officer for the Cheyenne Police Department. Today we will be providing an update on the 2015 coin shop double homicide case. Today's news conference is being recorded and will later be uploaded onto YouTube. A news release will also be emailed to members of the media and shared through our social media channels. A sign-in sheet is located at the front of the room near the front table. If you're not on the Cheyenne Police Department's media list, please share your contact information to receive a copy. On July 20th, 2015, Cheyenne police officers responded to a report of a shooting and robbery in progress at the coin shop located at 510 West Lincoln Way. Responding officers located two victims with apparent gunshot wounds. George Manley, 76 years old, and Dwight Brockman, 67 years old, both from Cheyenne, were pronounced dead at the scene. Their deaths were ruled as homicides. We will now hear remarks from Cheyenne Police Chief Mark Francisco. A brief question and answer session will follow with members of the media who have joined us today. We will do our best to answer your questions. However, some specific details may be limited to preserve the integrity of the investigation. Chief?
Thank you. Good afternoon. This morning, Cheyenne police detectives with assistance from the Siskiyou County, California Sheriff's Office arrested Douglas Smith, 68 years old, of McLeod, California, on a warrant alleging 2 counts of first-degree murder. Smith is now awaiting extradition from California to Cheyenne. 3 years ago, when I was hired as chief of police, I became aware of the homicide at the coin shop and decided to make this a priority. Cases like this can be very challenging with many layers of evidence. Our detectives have been diligently working for almost a decade and through detailed analysis have been able to thoughtfully re-examine the evidence in ways that bring those responsible to justice. Since 2015, the investigation has remained open with assignments to 5 different case detectives and 1 civilian. In March of 2023, Cheyenne police detectives revisited the homicide evidence with goals of generating additional investigative recommendations and determining if newly available technology would produce more leads to solve the case. Since 2023, over 1,500 additional hours have been spent working the case. Hundreds of tips, emails, and letters have been reviewed. Additional warrant service operations and interviews were also conducted in California and Colorado with assistance from partnering law enforcement agencies. The cost for travel, testing, and examination during this period is approximately $11,000. We have also worked diligently with federal, state, and local partners to include the Federal Bureau of Investigation, Laramie County District Attorney's Office, Riverside County, California Sheriff's Office, the Highway Patrol, the California Highway Patrol, the Siskiyou County, California Sheriff's Office, the Secret Service, the Bureau of Alcohol, Tobacco, and Firearms, Homeland Security Investigations, and the U.S. Marshals Service. As a result of their investigation, detectives believe that Douglas Smith, the initial 911 caller, killed Manley and Brockman on July 20th. The case has now been turned over to the Laramie County District Attorney's Office for prosecution. I would like to commend our team of detectives for their tireless work and commitment to building a solid case. I would also like to thank the District Attorney's Office for working diligently to prosecute the case. Strong partnerships have resulted in this arrest, which also is a step closer to closure for the community.
Laramie County District Attorney Sylvia Hackle was sworn into office in 2023. She has practiced law in Laramie County for over 42 years, with 22 years in criminal law and a master's degree in public administration. She will be speaking more about the path forward now that an arrest has been made.
Thank you, Alex, Chief, Mayor. Well, it's difficult to know what to say on a situation like this. It would be incorrect to say it's a pleasure to be here because this is not a happy occasion. But it is an important one. It's one where an individual that has been, it's safe to say, a person of interest for 9 years, we believe is finally being brought to justice. He was arrested this morning, is in custody in California, and it is our understanding is choosing at the moment to not say anything. I've lived in Cheyenne my whole life, and so I was aware of this crime the day it happened, as were probably most of you, and wondered, would it ever be solved? Would the perpetrator ever be brought to justice? So when we were approached by the Cheyenne Police Department with information that we're reopening the case, we're investigating it, and we want you to be our partners in that, I was glad to do so. It's important to see that these matters be brought to closure for the sake of the family and the community. So at this point, there's really not a lot I can say because we are awaiting the return of this individual to Laramie County, at which point proceedings will begin. I can't tell you right now if he will waive extradition or we'll have to do proceedings to bring him back. Obviously, we do have to bring him back. And so this will be proceeding on a step-by-step basis. The Deputy DA, Bill Edelman, who's in the back of the room, will be the chief prosecutor on this because he is the most experienced prosecutor I know. But I will be involved in the case every step of the way. And I will answer the questions that I am allowed to answer at this point in time, and we look forward to moving this case forward. Thank you very much.
Next, we'd like to invite Mayor Patrick Collins to say a few words.
Good afternoon, everyone. I am so pleased for the families of George Manley and Dwight Brockman that we finally made an arrest in the murder of their loved ones. 8 years and 11 months since that horrible day, our community can finally find solace. The perpetrator is in jail, and while justice has been delayed, justice will be served. Cheyenne is made up of many small businesses, and the horror that a small businessman and his customer could be brutally murdered in broad daylight while innocently conducting business during normal business hours has been hard on all of us. I interviewed Mark Francisco for the chief of police position on February 9th of 2021. And during that interview, I shared with the now chief Francisco the wound on our community's soul that has been left by these unsolved murders. Since that day, the men and women of our police department, supported by so many local, state, federal, and California law enforcement agencies, have collaborated to revisit this case. The evidence, and they've conducted a new investigation to try to solve this crime. It is so challenging to investigate a case after this much time has passed. The team had to let go of old thoughts and assumptions and look at the case from a fresh perspective. They basically had to start over. The lead detective, the lieutenant of detectives, along with the rest of our department, spent the last 14 months and over 1,500 hours reinvestigating these crimes. And I am so proud of their efforts. It would have been easy to open the cold case file, give it a cursory look, and give up. But instead, they truly investigated and came away with the findings that led to the arrest being made today. I would also like to recognize the courage of our local district attorney. I'm sure prosecuting older cases is much more challenging, but the DA worked with our detectives to make sure the case was ready, and she courageously agreed to prosecute, hopefully giving the families the closure they so deserve. Thank you, ma'am. Since July 20th, 2015, many of us have asked the question, who killed Mr. Manley and Mr. Brockman, and why? Today, we can answer the question of who. I hope we'll learn the why in the coming days, thanks to the hard work of our Cheyenne police officers. Thank you.
Okay, this is the point where we would try and answer any questions you might have. Please keep in mind we can't discuss evidence as DA Hackle mentioned, but if you've got some general questions, maybe we can put some answers to those.
Was Mr. Smith a Cheyenne resident at the time these killings occurred?
I don't believe he actually lived in Cheyenne. He did work here, though.
Follow-up question, if I may, the sketches don't look anything like a man who'd be 68 today. Were you given bad information on that, or what happened?
That's part of the stuff I'd rather not go into.
Okay, understood.
That will come out at a certain point.
But he was the 911 caller?
He was, yes.
Okay, thanks.
Yes, sir.
You mentioned, or the mayor mentioned the lead investigator or lead detective on the case? Or specifically since 2023 when you decided to revisit the case?
Yeah, so Detective James Pendleton was the lead detective, but I will say there were a lot of people involved in this, but somebody gets handed the case and that was him.
And at this point, we don't have a motive that you can talk about.
I'd rather not go into that one. I appreciate the question though. Anyone else? Going once? Well, I greatly appreciate you guys coming to cover this case. It is obviously a very important case to Cheyenne and the Cheyenne Police Department. I'm sure there will probably be follow-up questions as you go along. We'll do our best to work within the constraints of the prosecution going forward. It's it's the most important thing now. That's why we're hesitant to release additional information. We don't want to make the DA's job any more difficult. We don't want to prejudice the case in any way. So I hope you understand why we can't answer some of your questions.
One more, he was arrested on first-degree murder charges, is that correct?
That is correct.
Thank you.
2 counts. All right, thank you all for coming. I appreciate it.
I'd like to remind everyone, again, if you're not on our media list, please do use the sign-in sheet up front, and I have printed copies of our news release. This will also be emailed following the event.
Nice to meet you in person, Sylvia.
It is nice.